NEC press conference. Popcru spokesperson, that's Mr. Richard Mamabolo, joins us in studio now. Good afternoon, Richard. Always a pleasure having you on the SABC News Desk. Now, you're fresh from that conference. What are the critical issues that emerged from the NEC meeting? Look,
I think you need to take into mind that this special NEC takes place just in less than 2 weeks from the 13th COSATU National Congress, which will be starting on Sunday. So we obviously had to get our members in engaging on different positions that we would like to see being implemented and of course resolved upon within that 13th National Congress. But again, we also broadly looked into the state of the criminal justice cluster, more specifically the role and of course the weaknesses that we have obviously identified within the Hawks. And of course I think those form the basis of our discussions, and of course we would obviously want to ensure that there are actions taken in regards to that. One other issue that we obviously spoke about has been the responses that we got from since our national march, which took place on the 13th of July, where we were expecting responses from the different departments. Unfortunately, we did get responses from only two departments, being the SAPS and the Department of Health. And we feel that it's really unfortunate that the Department of Correctional Services and Department of Transport lost a real opportunity to start engagements with their members, because more than the SAPS, their issues have been long outstanding. In fact, more specifically the Department of Correctional Services, there have been outstanding issues over the past 10 to 11 years. A lot of members have died without those issues being resolved. A lot have resigned.
And one such incident that comes to mind chiefly was the stabbing, I think it was last month, of a correctional services officer, and it's just unfortunate that that 2-to-1 ratio is not being implemented at this point. What are the barriers to that implementation?
Look, I think that is not the only case. We've had many cases across the country in different police stations, correctional centers, where inmates have obviously had altercations with with the staff complement. Now, we came out clearly to say that, in fact, this has been a position for some time, that we urge our members not to agree to the implementation of policies that are out of, that are not in line with the DCS policies. In fact, what we have seen has been that the management has been forcing members to accompany inmates to different hospitals, to courts, individually, unilaterally. So that has been the challenge, and of course we are urging members that let them follow the prescripts. It can only be the ratio of 2-to-1, and that of course does not include the driver. Otherwise, we are in a trend that will see more police, correctional officials being killed.
Yes. As Popcru, I've read that you are happy with the Hawks under the Minister of Police, but you believe that the crime fighting unit has some problems around this. There's a structural dilemma at the crime fighting unit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, in fact, the Hawks have been incapacitated for a very long time. I think if you look at their success rates, it's so disappointing. But we believe that it's mainly due to the fact that they rely on the budget of the SAPS, which is a problem, because you have got units within the SAPS that want to replicate the role that the Hawks play. And of course, I think it compromises the integrity of the cases that the Hawks deal with, because for you to get any form of budget, the Hawks would have to go to the SAPS and request for a budget. They need to explain why they want to use that budget, so that automatically reveals information around investigations, and in most cases they are sabotaged. I mean, for example, you look at the former acting national commissioner, Mr. Patlani. He was being investigated. Now, how do you expect the Hawks to investigate him thoroughly when they are supposed to go to him and request for a budget? So it compromises the cases. We believe that the Hawks need to have an independent budget, so that their operational operations are not known by the SAPS. In fact, they use the SAPS laboratories, all these things. So in whatever way it is eminent that the SAPS would know about the kind of cases they're investigating. So there's more of competition instead of cooperation, and that is one thing that we think we need to deal with urgently.
Richard, before I let you go, we've had a spate of police killings making headlines recently. Now, studies have been done on the risk profile of SAPS members, circumstances of killings on and off duty, and the motive behind the cop killings, etc. Why do you think it's still so dangerous to be in the employ of the SAPS at this juncture in the country?
Look, the SAPS is understaffed, and of course the lack of resources has obviously demonstrated that they're incapacitated to deal with crime. In fact, in most cases, communities would blame the police for not doing their work, whilst disregarding the fact that you only have resources in affluent areas within the police centers. That is why we had called for the infrastructural integrity of all police stations across the country. We have seen, of course, in the past year, most of the killings on police have happened within police stations. So that obviously reflects on that weakness, and we think that it is something that the SAPS needs to look into. Of course, again, I think there are a number of issues that the SAPS responded to us on in that we would engage around them. Nothing has been finalized, but at least there is there is movement in actually looking into how we deal with all these matters.
What do you make of the police minister's recent remarks when he called on police to really come down hard on criminals and defend themselves? Now, you'll remember he took some flack previously when he made similar comments, some sections of the media even calling him a cowboy minister and saying that he's trying to militarize the SAPS. But he does have a strong track record. He's got a good track record, strong experience in policing, strong leadership skills, and during his tenure, history as police commissioner, we saw the 9 most policeable crimes, meaning armed robbery, murder and hijacking, really fall in comparison to the Celebi or Pierre era. Just your thoughts on that, Richard?
Look, in the long term, we need civilian oversight. We need communities to work closely with police, and that has been something that we're trying to build on. In fact, we believe that working with communities, in fact, in areas where police relate well with the communities, you'd find that crime levels are low. But of course, in the short term, we have been seeing a lot of police killings, and of course, as Popcru, we are saying that no police officers should die with their guns. They need to obviously act decisively.
Thank you, Richard, so much for your time on the SABC News Desk. Always a pleasure having you with us. That was the Popcru spokesperson, Richard Mamabolo, joining us on the desk this afternoon. Well, let's move on to some other news now. Transnet Chief Executive, that's Siyabonga Gama, will know his fate tomorrow already. The Transnet Board has asked him and his procurement officer, Tamsanka Giane, as well as supply chain manager Mdleche, why they should not be suspended. Well, this relates to the violation of the Public Finance Management Act in awarding a major tender to supply locomotives. The value of the tender escalated to more than 54 billion rand. The Guptas are alleged to have received more than 5 billion rand in kickbacks. Giane and Mdleche were suspended on Thursday.